Ms. Villalobos, will you lead the flag? Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Suzanne, would you please take the roll call?
Trustee Villalobos?
Here.
Trustee Bardal?
Here.
Trustee Shiakari?
Here.
Trustee Levin? Trustee Gould?
Here. Okay. The district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located in front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television records and broadcasts the meetings. Okay, report out on closed session topics. The board met in closed session regarding items as listed on the board agenda. By a unanimous vote of 4-0, the board voted to hire Julie Tarango as principal of Ocean Shore for the 2018-2019 school year. And the board will resume in closed session at the end of open session to continue discussion on some of the items listed in the agenda. Okay, approval of the minutes for March 7th. Okay.
I'll move
Motion to approve.
the minutes.
A second? All in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay. Approval of the agenda and the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
A motion to approve.
Okay, a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay. Communications. This portion of the agenda is available for the public to address the board on any issue that is not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is 3 minutes. Okay, LSEA?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, CSEA?
Good evening. I'd just like to recognize some people in the audience who aren't always here, so that we know who's here, who's represented today. We have kitchen staff from, can you stand up when I say your school? From Cabrillo, from Ortega, from Valamar, from Sunset Ridge, from IBL. And we have paraprofessionals from Valamar and Ortega, and I can't see who else is up there. Anybody that I'm missing? So thank you all for being here tonight, and this is a great example of democracy in action. Thank you.
Okay. People wishing to address the board. I have a yellow card from Jennifer Mitchell.
My name is Jennifer Mitchell. I have been a parent at Ocean Shore School for 13 years and a teacher there for 21 years. Beginning a year and a half ago, my daughter came to me about sexual harassment she was experiencing in her classroom and at school. I went to the administration repeatedly, yet nothing was done. Months later, when I found out the extent of the harassment, I was horrified and furious. I've gone to great lengths to get the administration and district to act, only to be met with resistance and willful inaction. Unsurprisingly, the sexual harassment is not limited to Ocean Shore. Over the past several months, I've spoken with parents from schools around the district. They have shared with me some of their daughters' stories, and I'm here to tell you this problem has not gone away. The violations of both Title IX and the California Education Code are numerous and egregious. I wanted to share with you some of the abuse girls in this district have been subjected to. Girls have been exposed to sexual imagery of women's genitalia with venereal disease. A girl was surrounded and forcibly kissed. A girl had a boy get in her bed on a field trip and tell her he had a boner. A girl saw a boy pull his penis out and begin masturbating next to her in class. Girls have had sexual gestures made to them in the hallways. Girls have been repeatedly, on a daily basis, told rape jokes. Girls who've been asked to join an orgy. Girl who had sexual comments made to her about what this boy wanted to do with her own mother. Girls have been subjected to direct comments about their body parts, and the butt grabs that are so ubiquitous they might as well be a new form of greeting. This is by no means a comprehensive list. There is much more that has been shared with me, and I suspect an even greater amount of abuse that girls have never shared with anyone. I am standing up for these girls because they cannot. Most girls haven't even told a parent, let alone gone to a teacher, school counselor, or administrator. They are just 11 and 12 and 13-year-old girls. They are humiliated, ashamed, embarrassed. They feel small and disgusting, and their self-esteem is shattered as a result of this ongoing harassment. These girls are damaged, and anyone who tells you otherwise doesn't understand or care to understand the full extent of this problem. I know you'd like to believe this issue has been fixed, but I'm here to tell you it has not. The few measly gestures the district has made hasn't eradicated this problem. It requires sustained, ongoing effort by professionals. This experience has been incredibly painful, yet I felt great pride in my daughter for raising her voice when she was in pain and she just wanted the whole thing to go away. On a more somber note, I've been disappointed in the lack of action of the Pacifica School District. It is in sharp contrast to the level of awareness and action in the rest of the country. I have suffered both personally and professionally for speaking up about this issue, and I have burned many a bridge. Despite being an excellent and dedicated teacher, I know I could never ask a single solitary one of you for a recommendation or even a good word. But you know, I can live with that because I know I am on the right side of this fight. Thank you.
Okay, correspondence?
None? None.
No correspondence, okay. Board and Superintendent Communications?
I'll start, since nobody else is jumping in. We did the Tech Trek interviews here, was that last week or the week before? To select 3 of our 7th grade girls to do a camp at a science camp at Stanford this summer. That we send girls to every year from our district, and so we've got 3 girls and an alternate chosen, and it was a great process and an honor to meet these girls from our schools and to see what fine young women we have in our community and that are growing up through our schools. And Jennifer's talk, reminds us all that we have beautiful but strong, very intelligent young women that we're bringing up in our schools. And the Me Too voice, we need everybody to have a voice about what's going on. Because if if everybody stays silent, then nobody knows all of the things that go on about harassment. And we're finding out a lot of people's dirty little secrets in the last year. And more will come out, and it takes the strong women in our city of Pacifica to bring these things out. So, I appreciate the voice. It's a voice that needs to be heard. Our girls need to be protected, and our girls need to be heard. IBL had their open house last week, and that was wonderful. Made a lot of connections with people and teachers, and they had a food truck and everything, and it was quite an event. The event that I went to on Friday was pretty spectacular at Ocean Shore, the Celebrate Diversity Day. I brought 3 teenagers from the school that I work at to talk at Diversity Day to 7th and 8th graders. There were a panel of high school students of sexual and gender diversities and LGBTQ and those kind of things. They talked to the kids about that. The kids were great. Our 7th and 8th graders are just, they're wonderful. They are so smart about asking questions, really deep, intelligent questions. It was very, very impressive. And we had a good group of high schoolers that understood their audience and were able to talk to them so that they would understand everything that they were talking about and all the new vocabulary and the trans and gender and all of these things that are kind of new to us, but they're old hat to our kids at this point. But that's always a wonderful thing to go to every year is the Celebrate Diversity at Ocean Shore. So I'm glad to get to participate again.
I can go. This past month, I went to the Youth and Family Summit, and the 2 sessions that I participated in were the alternatives to suspension and Bobby's story about the opioid epidemic. And that one was a full house. I mean, it's really sad. The things that we need to do for our youth right now around the drugs. I also went to a committee meeting for significant disproportionate suspensions and expulsions on African Americans, children in special ed. And that was with Jefferson Union High School. And this is an important issue because it's not only that we're finding out it's African Americans, but it's also special ed and other minority groups, such as Pacific Islanders. And so the presenters there were from Circle Up, and so we partook in exercises, we'll call it, to make us feel like we were disproportionate. And the really important thing was the second level principal interviews for Ocean Shore and interviewing the final candidates that were brought to us.
Okay. I visited Ocean Shore for a number of events, parent community feedback on the principal's character traits. Will and Siva did a great job of initiating that. Also attended the Celebrate Diversity Day and saw the soda assembly with the taiko drumming. And I hope as we go forward, we can do something about ventilation in the multi-purpose rooms. It's badly needed. Ocean Shore Book Fair, attended also their walkout event on March 14th. When kids walked the playground with their signs and quite a few kids on crutches, so it was pretty amazing. I also attended the Youth and Family Summit at IBL and the same opioid presentation, which was just heartbreaking. Attended my first Library Advisory Committee meeting. They are going to be rebranding the next push to include keeping Sanchez open, so that's going to be the next round to see if we can get a new library in the city. Just attended Lisa Kern's retirement party at the Moose Lodge, and Sue and everyone did a beautiful job on that. And Lindemar Education Center, I just wanted to let you know that they are continuing their collaboration with the Pacifica libraries. Jennifer Gray has been assisting with creating a social story for Sanchez, which is a book they make for the kids so they have some awareness of what they will see as they go into the library. And has been helping them with suggestions for apps for their early literacy iPads.
Okay, well, a lot of the same items. IBL's open house and the book fair at Ortega. As time I couldn't work the book fair, but I did helped with the setup and the tear down, which was a new experience. And it was very different than when all the kids are in there. Was on the panel for the Ocean Shore Principal and Lisa Kern's retirement party. And then Legislative Action Day in Sacramento. And I do have the paperwork if you guys want to see any of the copies of what, or the target things that day. The main bullet points were to talk to them about full and fair funding, school facilities funding, and pension costs were the main bullet points. And that was the day that I was really sick, and I admit I only made about halfway through the day before I was going to probably take down half of Sacramento. But you know, they had a good turnout as usual, and you know, kind of standing room only, and it was a good day up there in Sacramento.
Okay, so the only thing that I could add is some activities that are coming forward that we all participate in. Thank you to Pacifica school volunteers, and that is the Oceana exhibition, which will be coming up this Friday, and also Sunset Ridge's open house starts tomorrow evening, and I got a wonderful personal invitation to Sunset Ridge's Ability Awareness on Friday, so I will be attending that as well. So I look forward to all of those.
Okay, number 10, presentations, trending issues in San Mateo County. You have Janae Luttrell.
So it's my pleasure to introduce Janae. Janae has just been a wonderful addition. How long have you been with us now, San Mateo?
Almost 3 years.
Has it been 3
Yes,
years?
almost 3 years.
And she is a Pacifica resident.
Yes.
And so thank you very much for coming to our community.
Sure.
She serves as the administrator for Safe and Supportive Schools, and is going to talk to us about trending issues in San Mateo County and possibly some of the wonderful things that we're doing to work towards supporting our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a clicker? You're going to do it? Okay.
We'll start.
Should I start? Okay, so thank you for having me here this evening. It was a challenge to be able to kind of capture trending issues across San Mateo County in a brief presentation, but I hope I kind of captured kind of the larger one or the more current trending issues. So some of the data that I'll be able to show you is across the county, and some of it is, thank you. We'll just get going. Where do I aim it?
I won't, hold on.
All right, we're set to go. So some of you might be aware of a term called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and what that is it's research that shows that children who experience ACEs, or the more ACEs that one experiences, the more negative outcomes they have both in health and mental health, and then also in our academic performance. So this is some data to show that in San Mateo County, in general, our ACE scores are better than the average of California. So in general, in San Mateo County, we have fewer ACE scores than the average. But some of the data I'm going to highlight here really shows that San Mateo County performs better or appears better than some of the averages across San Mateo County. But please recognize that this is kind of a global perspective, and that we still have children in Pacifica and other schools that have 3 or more ACEs, and that when children have ACEs, that's actually a strong consideration for us in the school setting, that trauma and its impact on learning has strong implications for us in the classroom. So even though across the board in San Mateo County we might be doing better, we know that not every teacher or every school site, we know that not every child has a high score of ACEs, but we do know that every teacher does work with students with high ACE scores. Because if you look at the population in general, about 20% of your classroom environment will have 3 or more ACEs. And then this shows, I'm sorry, can you, and this just shows that the reports of child abuse and neglect in San Mateo County, San Mateo County is the yellow line, that we are actually, we have lower numbers of reports for child abuse and neglect. Again, we look better in comparison to California, but that doesn't mean that we don't have children here who are experiencing these. And then in children in poverty. So again, we have 9.7% of our students in San Mateo County that are identified as impoverished versus almost 23% for the state. So I would just highlight this to show that across the county, our children, in relation to other pockets of California, are looking better. So that's good. It just also has to make sure that we're not forgetting that we still have students that are impacted by this. But I highlight this because I really want to show that the areas that we are outstanding, it actually is even of greater interest of us to lean in. Some of the areas that we are disproportionate, so even though we're better in these areas, some of the areas that we're disproportionate is in the area of mental health. So here you see children in poverty. Children in poverty in San Mateo County. In general, our children are not as impoverished. However, this is how it's broken down by ethnic group. So the majority of the children that are identified as living in poverty in our county are children that are Latino or Hispanic. And oftentimes poverty is connected to homelessness, but so is our cost of living here and so is our housing crisis. So here in San Mateo County, it's important to recognize that our cost of living is about 50% higher than the national average. And then it's also important to recognize that across the county, we have almost 2,500 students that qualify or identified as homeless per the education code. And that we know that homeless children have more physical and mental health issues, they have a decrease in academic achievement, and they have an increased vulnerability in lots of areas, including sexual exploitation, which I'll be talking about as well. And then here's where we are in relation to the rest of the state. But I highlight these areas again because I like to show where we are in relation to the state, but I don't want us to get a false sense that we don't have issues. Of course we do, and those of us in this room know really very well that we have students and families that are struggling and still need support. And so that leads us into the mental health. So we know in general in the United States that about 1 in 5 children have a diagnosable or will have a diagnosable mental health issue. And we know that about 8% of our youth have an anxiety disorder. That is a number that's growing across the nation. And we do know that we have kind of an increase of anxiety. Students that are identified with anxiety here in San Mateo County, that number is going up. And then about 61,000 students in San Mateo County, which is about 65% of our students, we have about 95,000 total, are privately insured, and so they're not able to access some of our county-wide mental health services. And then we know from a recent Board of Supervisors report that it was published in 2014 and 2015, that in the past month, nearly 70% of the respondents that were all school-age children reported being nervous, depressed, or emotionally distressed. And youth who have mental health issues are more likely to have felt discrimination. And this can go both ways, both in the area of stigma that one experiences when they're struggling with a mental health issue, but also students that are discriminated struggle with anxiety, and it can lead to some of the mental health implications as well. And so if you look at our hospitalizations here for mental health in San Mateo County, this is an area that we are actually flipped. So while we had a lot of strong evidence that we are performing better than the state of California, this evidence shows that our children are suffering in the area of mental health at a greater rate than children across California. And that's in every age group. So the purple is ages 5 through 14, the yellow is ages 15 through 19, the green is ages 5 through 19, and ages 15 to 19. So in every single age group, our children are overrepresented as far as hospitalizations for their mental health issues. And then here's also a really concerning one, that we have, the yellow line is San Mateo County, the purple line is the state of California, and this represents the children that are being seen in the hospital for self-inflicted wounds. So that could be even attempt to harm self as far as a suicidal attempt, but it could also be cutting and other harmful behaviors. So this should really stand out as a big concern for us in San Mateo County. Again, not only because this is very concerning, but especially when you look at our risk factors in relation to some of other California, we don't have the same level of risk, but we're having a greater level of students that are identified in need. And so we do know that suicide prevention needs to happen. It's actually state law now that we do this training. And we also know that in general, 8.6% of students in high school attempted suicide 1 or more times in the last 12 months. So unfortunately, we have seen some increase of suicidal ideation here in San Mateo County, as well as students that are getting screened at the psychiatric emergency rooms, as well as students that have died by suicide. And then we know that San Mateo County has the highest rates. Again, this goes back to the previous slide. So across the whole state, we stand out. We have the highest per 1,000 students that are being seen for self-inflicted wounds. And then we also know that LGBTQ plus students are overrepresented with a lot of negative outcomes, not only across San Mateo County, but across the nation. And so students that are LGBTQ plus are also overrepresented in the homelessness rate. They struggle with additional mental health issues. They, at least 50% of transgender teens have at least one suicide attempt by their 20th birthday. And LGBT students are 5 times more likely to have skipped school in the last month for a variety of reasons, mainly around physical safety or emotional safety. So I appreciated the board member talking about the way in which we support our students, especially around transgender issues, and gender fluidity is really important for us to focus on in schools. And then depression related bisexual orientation. So we see here that students that are either identify as gay, lesbian, or bisexual are represented at a higher rate as far as struggling with depression related feelings. And across the county, we have about 475 foster youth in 1 year. At any one time, there's about 250, but throughout the year, there's about 475 that are in San Mateo County. And what national data tells us is that there's likelihood of being absent from school 2 or more times greater than that of other students. In general, when one enters the foster youth program or are pulled into foster youth by child welfare, in general, over half of them experience a school change. And we know how complicated school changes and detrimental school changes can be for young people. So we're working really hard to make sure that we have stability and we do the best we can to keep children connected to their school of residence whenever possible. And we also know that this is not only critical for that immediate change of placement, that we don't want them, being in a 3rd grade class one day, them having something happen at home, getting placed in a 3rd grade class in another school or even another county often. Because of the cost of living here that we referenced, with our cost of living being over 50%, a large percentage, in fact about 40% of our foster youth are placed out of county. So not only are they no longer connected to their school environment often, sometimes they're no longer connected to even their neighborhoods or even the county of origin. And that's true too, that we receive children from other counties, and so the way in which we support them get to be more complicated because they're missing their roots as well. And so in general, what we know is that foster youth students only graduate at about a 50% rate. And then we also know that there's been some national and state influences. So we do know that there's been an increase of fear around undocumented youth and the immigration narrative that's been coming around, but also documented families and dual status families. So children might be here, have been born here, but maybe their extended family or even their own parents have not been. So we've seen children across the San Mateo County start to kind of disengage in their learning. Maybe they haven't felt comfortable attending school, or maybe they haven't felt hopeful that they can even attend college. So we have seen a decline in the lack of motivation by some students who attribute this to the ambiguity and the fear around the national narrative on immigration. And this ongoing insecurity and ambiguity around the DACA program and the fact that it hasn't yet been clarified of how our dreamers will be able to stay connected, that puts a big cloud over folks, especially what we're seeing in the high school. It's hard to stay motivated and to dedicate the time and attention it takes to get into college if you're not sure that door will be open for you. And then as we saw with the Parkland, Florida shooting, that caused a reverberation across the whole nation, and locally what we've seen is a significant increase in students that have been identified as maybe making inappropriate or potentially threatening comments. So we have seen a large increase of schools asking for assistance, knowing how to support students, but also trying to determine if a student might be a potential threat. And then as of January 1st, now that marijuana has been legalized for adults age 21 and older, what we do know through research is that anytime that a substance gets legalized, that it has negative implications for those that are underage, because it starts to kind of become more normalized. It starts to become not such a stigma-driven, dangerous entity. And so now that's something that we anticipate will be causing a negative impact for our students. And on that note, what we know about the marijuana that children have access to is that the marijuana is much more potent than it has been historically. And that children that are engaging in either smoking marijuana or in the edibles, that the way in which it causes the negative impacts on their brain development is very significant, especially for those in the school environment that are trying hard to educate the young people and need their brains to continue to develop in healthy ways. So we do kind of know that that's something we need to work more aggressively at in the prevention area. However, I just also wanted to highlight that Senator Jerry Hill is pushing forward some legislation that will allow for children who have severe disabilities, sometimes different health conditions that might cause seizures, that they might be able to access some medical treatments around cannabis use within the school setting, with parents coming on campus to be able to provide that medication for their student in the school setting to keep them engaged. So it's a national conversation, and it's a California conversation that's getting more precarious for us in schools. How do we navigate this really kind of not so black and white world anymore? And yet we still know that this has significant implications for our young people's brains as they're developing. And then finally, one of the things I wanted to bring to attention is that we know that human trafficking is on the increase across the nation. We know that being in the Bay Area, we are one of the hot target areas. As far as the FBI's list, we're one of the top 8. And here in San Mateo County, we're working really hard to make sure that we have all of our schools trained on what are the warning signs, what are the red flags. And as of January 1st, the state of California passed AB 1227 that does require every educator who works with students grades 7 through 12 to get trained on human trafficking, both sex trafficking and labor trafficking. And that it also calls on us to train students once in middle school and once in high school on human trafficking, again, both labor and sex trafficking. So we're taking that very aggressively and very seriously here. But not only do we want to train our school personnel and our students on how to take care of themselves and how to potentially identify a student that might be at risk of this or harmed, we want to be able to have our linkages and our connections with our partners to be very solid. So we've worked to create an educator protocol. So when we train our educators, here are your warning signs, here are your red flags, that they know exactly what are the steps to take, when to call in child welfare, when to call in law enforcement, what are some considerations for the campus so that we can keep all our children safe and connected. So this work is really kind of ramping up here in San Mateo County. And if we think back to all the risk groups that we just talked about, unfortunately, students with risk are disproportionately represented as far as victims in human trafficking. However, there's also children that can get caught up in this who present with very minimal risk. So going back to that original slide, so even though in some areas we look really, really good here in San Mateo County, we still have children that we have to pay attention to and support. And then I did just want to, in closing, talk a little bit about the work that we're doing, not only for Pacifica, but all the school districts. And that is, we created an information sharing agreement that passed after the Sandy Hook shooting that happened in 2012. So that our agencies can share information legally and make sure that all of our students are protected while we don't break their confidentiality. We're also working with school districts to round out their mental health services. Your district participates in our school-based mental health collaborative along with Jefferson Union. So we have strong linkages that when we transition the students from Pacifica into Jefferson Union, that we're transitioning with well-supported and folks ready to carry on the good work that's happening here in Pacifica. We have rolled out suicide prevention, so we were able to train all of your district administrators, all your counselors, all your mental health staff on suicide prevention. What are the warning signs? How do we intervene? How do we access services? And then we also were able to train all of your, all those same folks, the administrators, the mental health folks, on threat assessment. So if we have a student that might make a concerning statement, how do we lean in and make sure that that student's not potentially a harm to campus, but really that student's oftentimes not a harm, but demonstrating needing support. So that's a new strategy that we've rolled out this school year. And then finally, back to the human trafficking that I was just referencing, we have a very solid protocol that we've created with our legal counsel. So when school folks do get trained, and then they go on and do their business, and maybe 6 weeks later they have a student that they're concerned about, they know exactly what steps to take. So not only are we building mechanisms, we're trying to really make sure those mechanisms are easily accessible and supported for the frontline teacher, who are often the ones that see the changes, who have that amazing intuition, and have a sense of there's something not right here, and what might it be, and how do we support that child. So, I know that was short and sweet and fast. Any questions?
That was a lot of information.
Yes.
And it's pretty shocking. 20% of our children have a serious mental illness. You said 1 in 5.
So that's national data that says that 1 in 5 children either have a currently diagnosable mental health issue or will have a diagnosable mental health issue. The majority of the children have some type of indication that they have a mental health issue by the age of 13 and 14. So in general, about 20% of our population, and again, if we think about anxiety disorders, if we think about depression, if we think about kind of all the range of what mental health can look like and mental illness can look like, that would be about accurate. And then when you factor in our unique kind of really disturbing data around mental health in San Mateo County, we have to really lean in and figure out what that is. And I think it's a mixture of a lot of things. I think that 50% additional cost of living has a unique impact on families. I think has a unique negative impact on our students. I think there's a lot of dynamics, but our children are hurting at a disproportionate rate, and the way in which we support them needs to kind of go up at a disproportionate rate also.
Well, you know, if 20% of our kids, you know, are affected, need the support for mental health, then we should have some kind of staff that you know is there to support that 20%, and that can't be somebody that's around 1 day a week, or you know, that's, you know, it's got to be some real support going on if the numbers are that high. The other thing I found, that like the comment I found surprising, but maybe not surprising at all, 50% of our foster youth don't finish high school or don't graduate by the time they're 18. And yeah, we can kind of nurture them here, but when they get to the high school district, you know, they're kind of gone from us, and we, you know, those of us with foster kids in the high schools are really feeling the pain of trying to have those kids graduate, and that it's a different game for them. Yeah, they are not level with kids that have not been in foster care, and yet they have to meet the same criteria as everybody else to graduate, and it's hard to get them up there. It's a real battle, and I wonder if there's some way that the county or something can help us support those kids, you know, in high school diplomas. You know, that because it may be that they won't all be able to get one from one of the local high schools, but you know, is there a way, you know, you can get a state diploma or, you know, with the Chesapeake, but then you could, you know, could you get a county diploma, you know, and not have to jump through all the hoops that the high school is.
You bring up a really great point, and the law does support that if a child does get have a change of placement after the 10th grade, whether they have a foster home change of placement or even if they enter the juvenile justice system, that they are then eligible for AB 167 or 216, which is the state requirement. So it's about 130 credits versus 220. So our education liaisons work with all of our districts to make sure that the transcripts are evaluated so that we can determine. It's not so students can graduate early. We want them in school for the 4 years, but we don't want them harmed and having to stick around for 6 or 7 years because out of their control, their foster placements have moved. So great point. So we're working hard to make sure that we're finding that sweet spot where we're helping students not be harmed, but we're also making sure that they get as much education as they need. And then we're working to make sure that they're articulating into either a 4-year program or into the community college so that they have additional training to have the future they deserve also. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You know, I always see the programs about human trafficking, and they always seem very dramatic. And we're in a county where we're targeted, so I'm just wondering what that looks like here in San Mateo County.
What the targeting looks like or the programs?
Like,
So-
what's an example?
Because of our high tourism and because of the number of different conferences that come to the area and because of where we are, that we're considered a very Where we're located in relation to the airport as well as to the major corridor freeways, we're just in a unique opportunity for folks to be able to come in, either recruit or sell our young people. And so and that's why we're one of the top 8 in the nation. So is Los Angeles and San Diego. But the 5 freeway is a definite kind of corridor. And so it goes all the way from the border up to the other border. And then the 10 freeway from Southern California all the way across, those are the 2 main kind of thoroughfares that traffickers are running their victims. So part of it's just where we're located. It's not that we necessarily have a lot of additional risk factors than other communities. However, we also have such a high wealth that we have a market that's pretty profitable for exploiters. So we kind of have a lot of the imperfect storm, or they would call it the perfect storm. We would call it the imperfect storm for this crime to happen. So we are working hard because with the 23 districts, it's easy, and with so many law enforcement entities, we have to work extra hard to be coordinated and in sync. So we are really intentionally making sure that we're training in a coordinated fashion, that we're synced up, that people know exactly what to do if they have a concern. But we are really having to put a lot of additional effort there, but it's worth it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay.
Questions? Discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. District business, district goals. The district values the goals provided in local control accountability plan and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details for each one of the district goals can be assessed on our agenda online public page or by visiting the district website, www.pacificasd.org, under District Information, Board of Trustees. Okay, 11A, Camp Lead, Oxford Day Academy, right?
All right, and that unfortunately was a typo. It's Camp Lead Student Leadership Program. So Janae got to rest for about a minute.
Deja vu, I'm back.
And she's back again to present. This camp's designed to foster leadership skills. San Mateo County Office of Education is sponsoring this camp. Janae is here tonight to share with the Board of Trustees what this camp is about. It is our hope the board will approve the field trip after Janae's presentation. This is an action item. So Janae, welcome back.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you for being
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. So I'm excited to be here tonight to talk about Camp Lead. Camp Lead is a new program that we're bringing up to San Mateo County. We've been running it about 20 years in San Diego County. And it's a program, it's a student leadership program for middle school and high school students. It's a social emotional experiential program focused around social justice issues. So we're fortunate, the County of San Mateo County Office of Education, to have special TUPE funds that allow for us to do youth development for students across San Mateo County. So we can offer this free of charge for our districts. And we're also fortunate to have a foundation step forward and offer some financial assistance. So Camp Lead, as I mentioned, is a social emotional program. So I was excited to see this target on your wall because the students participating in this program will be developing social emotional skills. And what we're proposing is that the students who will participate in this program will not only be from Pacifica, but we'll have students from Jefferson Elementary School District and Bayshore School District. So it'll be a collaboration of the 3 districts. And again, it's an experiential program. So while we take students through the leadership programs, we're doing it through teaching, by learning, and by doing. And so the students participate in fun activities where they're learning about their communication style, where they're learning about how to work with people, where they're learning about why didn't I speak up? Why didn't I feel comfortable expressing myself? Wow, maybe I spoke up too much. Was I not creating space for others to participate? So all of this is through activities, and then we as the guides or the trainers facilitate the reflection components. So it's a practical hands-on training. Students work to identify and address their own behaviors and attitudes. They get a chance to look at their own culture. They get a chance to look at their own identity in lots of different ways. And what we do as the facilitators is we just facilitate their conversations. We use the cultural humility framework, which means we're asking everybody to be a lifelong learner about who they are and who they are in relation to others. We're asking them to recognize power imbalances, and so where in your life do you have power? How can you utilize that power? How do you make sure that your power is being used to build up your community? And what we're always teaching them is that communities, we can do things to build communities up, or we can do things to break them down. So they identify for us what's breaking down their community. Some students will talk about bullying. Some students will talk about, negative comments or social media. And then whatever they bring us, we continue to have them work through their issues. So what this camp will look like, we will have the same topics and areas, but the way the conversations will go will be different than how we do it with any other program, because it's what the students are organically bringing to the process. So again, we're proposing that this be a program that we do in collaboration with these 2 other districts, and it's divided down based on the size of the districts. So we're asking for 30 of your 6th and 7th grade students to participate. The staff that will be coming are personnel from your school district, and then there's a guide team or training team, and those are folks that come from all diverse backgrounds, both ethnically, professionally, and we do youth development work all over, and so we run the activities. There will be about 18 to 20 school district personnel, and the other thing that's an important part of the program is that we invite our law enforcement partners to come along. They come in plain clothes, they participate, they develop relationships with kids develop relationships with them, and then on day 3 they come out in their uniform, and now students have realized that really cool person in their cabin also is a deputy or also is an officer, and now there's that relationship established, because what we're seeing unfortunately now across the nation is kind of a division between some communities and law enforcement. And we know, especially if we think back to the previous conversation, if students are much more vulnerable if they don't have a sense of who they can trust. And so if they have positive relationships with law enforcement, then they hopefully, if anything negative comes their way, they'll have a sense of who they can turn to for support. But then honestly, it's also great for our school personnel and law enforcement to really learn from the experts who are the students about what it means to be a sixth grader or 7th grader, what they're experiencing, so that they can be more mindful of that in their jobs. So the logistics are that the camp will be held April 16th through 18th. There's no cost to the districts or to the family. The camp will be held at Redwood Glen Campsite, which is in Scotts Valley. The students will be transported on charter buses, and the campsite, all the meals will be provided, and students will be supervised at all times. Oops, I think I shut it off. There we go. And so what we do on day 1 is we welcome everybody, and we start to build a community. And so all day 1 is building the community. We introduce them to the Keep It Real guidelines, and so we're going to all participate. We're all going to empathize. Each of those letters stand for an agreement that we have. We spend a lot of time doing icebreakers and having a lot of fun that are also educational. But then there's a sense of trust and a sense of connection so that we can lay the other work on top of it. We do peer groups, so every student will be part of a cabin group that will be consistent. Every student will be part of a peer group that will be consistent. And then every student is part of the larger community group. So when we go through activities, we process, we get a chance to debrief, but some students don't want to talk in front of maybe 80 other people. So at least they have a cabin group, or at least they have a peer group that's consistent. We do across the line activities so students can see that they're not the only ones. Never do we do this activity where students are crossing and they're the only ones. And we start with fun things like cross if you love pizza, cross if you've ever thrown up in public, kind of silly ones, to much more serious. Cross if you've, ever seen someone bullied on your campus. Cross if you have ever lost somebody to violence. Right? And so and when they cross, sometimes they recognize, I thought I was the only one, and they've been dealing with burden and isolation, and so that breaks that down. We then go into isms, and so the students will, each peer group will be given a definition from racism, classism, sexism, the different issues that we're dealing with, and they get those definitions. They do a skit for the rest of the community, and these are all their own skits. These are stories that they have lived or witnessed. So then we as a community understand what these are playing out, and then we process this. Day 2, and so this is the students working on in their peer groups. Then they work on day 2, who am I? More ice breaking, more team building. They go through an activity around class. Take a step forward if you've had 50 books in your home. Take a step back if you ever had to miss a meal or go hungry because your family couldn't provide it. Take a step forward, right, all the way back. The good thing is that we ask all of the adults to answer as if they were in middle school. So you'll see folks, the adults that students often assume were born at the front of the classroom, taking step back too. And that's a great way for us to kind of connect with the humanity of common experience. We go through, after we do the class, those are things that students have no control over. And then we juxtapose that with choices. Those are things that students have absolute control over. I do my homework every day. I hang around people that are healthy. I treat people with respect. I, don't attend school every day. So positive and negatives just for them to look in the mirror. And we don't know what their answers are, and we count off in an anonymous way. So if we have 100 people in the room, we will count, okay, I do my homework every day, 62. 1 through 62 will stand up so students can see what our community numbers are, and then we process that. Again, we go into peer groups, then the students self-identify what is their cultural identity, and we keep going, and this is often a struggle. So some students just have never been asked to think about this. Oftentimes students are, well, you tell me, and we don't do that. So we ask and we keep kind of probing them until they feel comfortable, and sometimes a student will start in one group and then go, actually, I'm more biracial, or actually, I'm more this, and that's okay because it's about them understanding who they are. And then we have prompts for them to think through, and then they develop a presentation for the community, and part of what they tell us is what they need from the community to feel more included. And then that night we talk about gender experiences, boys and girls, and what we experience. Here's a picture of the cross the line, people moving forward and people moving back, and they all started on the same line. Here's an example of a cultural presentation. This was a school that we did in East Palo Alto. And this was a multiracial group, and they were presenting on their diverse identities even within their own groups. And then on day 3, we end with inclusive communities. Now that we've gone through this and we have our learning, how are we going to take it back? But before we really dive into those conversations, now the law enforcement come out, the same folks that they've gotten to know, but now they're in uniform. And so that conversation gets to happen, and that can be really, really powerful. Then we do an activity around inclusion, exclusion, and then we develop action plans for bringing it back. So we do know that research has shown that students that participate in Camp Lead increase their attendance, decrease their discipline, and increase their academic performance. Part of it's because it's all social emotional, and we know that this works. So taking students, and part of the intentionality between taking 6th and 7th grade students is they're going to be yours next year too. So how can they be student leaders for Pacifica District next year? So here's, we had 9 deputies at the last camp. Here's a picture of all of them. And then here was the entire camp community. So this is exactly what, it's the exact same campsite as well that we'll be taking your students to, with your permission.
So I was at the San Mateo County office
The breakfast?
presentation
Yeah.
that we did, and I'm really excited that we can do this. I have a couple of questions, and I'm not sure who would answer this, but is Pacifica PD going to be involved in this?
We have, I've sent an email to the chief. I haven't confirmed that, so I don't yet know if they have the
Okay.
staffing ability.
Okay. And then how are the students chosen for this?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So each principal of the K-8s and the principal of IBL sent an informational flyer out to their 6th and 7th grade school community and asked parents, guardians to respond back if they had interest in supporting their child attending this camp. So they have those names now, and we discussed how we would equally divvy up how many kids from each site will go. So we chose 18 from IBL because of it being the largest school population, and then 4 from each K-8. And one of the K-8 principals shared with me yesterday that they already have more names than the 4 slots, so they're going to do a lottery.
And my understanding was that this is supposed to be a mixed group, so some kids who maybe get into discipline issues and some kids who are higher on the leadership. So how is that all, that's just going to be left up to the principal to make sure we're including both those
Equally
groups, right?
balanced, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So what is the profile of the kid that goes? I mean, what is the intended profile?
So that's the nice thing, is that every student can benefit from Camp Lead. You can be a traditional leader, and you can have a lot of protective factors and lots of real blessings in your life, and you may not have recognized how you've been privileged and benefited. So going through this process, you still have your own epiphanies, your own insight. You're still a teenager struggling with teenage, emotions. So that student can definitely benefit, as well as a student that maybe is a foster youth student or has other risk factors. So the good thing about Camp Lead is that it really can benefit all students. We also kind of look for the balance, because it's important that students that are maybe at the front of the line, for them to recognize how much they do have in common with students that might be at the back of the line, and vice versa. In other words, we have a lot more in common than we realize, and we just don't often take the time to have true conversations and make those connections. And camp is that place that makes that happen. So there isn't one profile.
Is this a State of California grant funded, or what is the
So-
funding for this?
It's TUPE, which is Tobacco Use Prevention Education. Those are state funds that come, that's tobacco funds that funnel to the state, that come to us at the County Office of Education for youth development activities around student leadership. So this is exactly a program that would fit that funding requirement.
Or cigarette use at work?
So are you going to come back after those dates, the 16th and 18th, and let us know how things went? Or will
Sure, I'd be
we
happy to.
get
Maybe
email?
some students.
Yeah, we love to.
It seems really exciting and purposeful.
Yeah, great, we'd love to.
I was at the county breakfast, the county presentation, and yeah, it seems amazing. And it seemed to benefit the officers too. They seem to
Exactly.
learn a lot too.
We all grow every camp, yeah.
And this isn't new. This isn't the first time you've done this, right?
So this will be the second camp that we've offered in San Mateo County, but we've been doing the model for 20 years.
Okay, so I guess this is an action item. Any other questions or discussion? We have a motion to approve. Camp Lead?
I motion to approve.
Okay,
the
and a
Camp Lead.
second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay, 11B, cabinet reorganization. Should the comments be after the presentation? Okay.
Okay, I bring forward to you this topic of cabinet reorganization. I know it's a very difficult, I know that this is a very difficult ask. It's something that I had to think about deeply in relationship to bringing this forward, but I also believe as a responsibility to the district at this particular time that I would be remiss if I did not bring this forward, simply because of an opportunity that we have at this time in relationship to a potential restructuring. I go back to probably 2014 with we did an efficiency review of our district, because as we were building back our program from the 2008 fiscal crises, we wanted to do so thoughtfully. So we started bringing back positions that we felt would help strengthen our district, as opposed to just having bring back who we had in the past, or positions we had in the past. So if you could put up attachment B. Thank you. This attachment really shows what the perception would, or what the organization would look like with the superintendent, the areas that they would oversee. An example is, of course, the superintendent, who will be a new person next year, oversees many of the various organizations, but we do have leadership at within certain areas. For example, Josie, who does is a CBO, really oversees administrative services, so I'll go over her slide there. What the proposal is to have, instead of an executive director of integrated services, as we currently do, to separate out maybe those areas, and I will show you how that looks on a different slide, but have an executive director of human resources and pupil services. Pupil services, which I will go over, really talks about the open enrollment process, etc. And then we would have the administrator of integrated services, which is really around, and again, I have a slide that breaks that out as well, but the RTI model of both the academic and social emotional learning of our students. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Ooh. So this slide is what Ray does currently. And so the yellow highlighted areas are the areas of that we propose to go to different departments or different sections. So for example, this position would no longer do the human resources, labor relations, and classified, which he currently does. The student service section would be removed from the integrated services administrator position. The under health and wellness, there is health services that would leave the integrated services piece, as would, I think that's homeschool and yeah, homeschool. That would leave as well. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Can we make it bigger?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the human resources slide, and this year we made a shift and I took over overseeing human resources, but as you can see, everyone else took a piece of it. Josie became the chief negotiator. Will Lucy, executive director, did labor relations, also works with substitute, certificated staff, and teacher induction plan. The dotted line means that we shared that responsibility. The integrated services, executive director of integrated services, Ray, did labor relations for classified as well as substitute classified. And then I did the credentialing, the staffing, along with Moy, who has helped me tremendously, and oversaw the hiring process, or am overseeing the hiring process and the evaluation, both being shared by the principals, etc., whoever evaluates. So this became kind of human resources for this year, shared, again, responsibility. And again, I thank all of the cabinet for their support and assistance. Next slide, please. Oh, no.
Okay. Sorry.
It's going back to that same one.
You can't open, but let me see if I can open it this way.
It would be slide E, attachment E.
Yeah. It's, yeah. Do this in Word. Yeah, it won't open for some reason, the attachment won't open.
It's not opening on mine either.
Yeah. Kathy's got a copy of it.
Mine opened.
It's all magnified.
This is it right here.
Okay, did you get it?
Is that it? Okay.
No.
No.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. At the E,
Integrated services.
is that it?
There it is.
There it is.
Okay, so having shared the current and some of the suggested changes, this is the suggested administrator of integrated services. And again, it really takes the RTI model on both sides of the triangle, as we say, the academic as well as the social emotional. And here you could see that this administrator would do the response to intervention and academics, taking a look at instructional programs and overseeing the 504 plans. Because at that time, we're still in probably a tier 1, tier 2 situation. Also, this position would oversee special education, because of course special education is an extremely important department that has a lot of moving parts, a lot of different support staff, and we have to make sure that we have that clear understanding of the student and the needs of the family. And therefore, you will see all of the various programs that we oversee in special education. Then here is the RTI model of the health and wellness. So here is the whole wellness plan, which again, the integrated services administrator would oversee. Wellness policy, which also includes PE and the health education piece, which we have added our social and emotional component for our students. School climate will also fall under our RTI model, and that's with our counseling services and our safety plans, to make sure that our safety plans are in place. And then, of course, LMEC, which houses the pre-K, that really is a somewhat of a shared responsibility. We do have Jen, who is there on a day-to-day basis. John Hashizume works with our the people who have leases. But we do have our pre-K special ed program, and the administrator would be able to supervise those teachers who are there. And Jen helps us with the support staff. Next slide, please.
Is it the right one?
Okay, I can't see it. Okay, yes. So this would be the executive director position, but focused on human resources and pupil services. So for this one, again, we would pull all of the human resources, human resources that we shared, we'd pull them all together under this umbrella for this particular person. And we would have labor relations, both certificated and classified, which deals with negotiations and contracts, etc. The person would do the staffing for both certificated and classified. Pupil services would be all of the student records, enrollment, attendance, etc. And I also added, I thought, suspensions and expulsions. And I want to say, I don't think it's on this one, but instructional minutes, I believe is.
It's in the right column, but I think you're going to be moved to the...
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. So here is on the last column, I can't read that. That is... Technology. So thank you. Oh, thank you. So we would move technology from ESS, because ESS does assessments, et cetera, and I'll show you that slide. But, and put that under human resources and pupil services, simply because that's where the SIS, the student information system, would lie. And that's what our synergy is. And so we need somebody to oversee CalPAS, et cetera, to do our instructional minutes, look at our network and our website, and then instructional technology would be shared along with ESS. Okay, next slide, please. So essentially, this is what Josie's work would look like for next year, and there was very little changes on this one. My suggestion would be that she might want to maintain the chief negotiator position, just because you will have new staff members on board and, you need some continuity. Although a human resources executive director could potentially serve as the chief negotiator as well. But everything else remains the same. Fiscal services, facilities, maintenance and operations, and child nutrition. And then the next slide. And so this is the executive director currently so there'll be very little changes except for, as I suggested, for technology, this whole piece would go over to HR People Services, which would then allow for the executive director to focus on all of these other sections of his work. We also would move instructional technology under instructional materials, and that probably should be instructional materials and programs. For example, we oversee a lot of online computer programs. Human resources would be, for labor relations, would be removed, as would the instructional minutes, again, go under people services. So the vision of the reorganization is really to try to serve our students and our school community better, so we could be out in the community, we can see who our students are, we can get to know our families. Currently, it's very difficult. As we have all discussed, there are a lot of boxes under each of our names, and yet I also understand that it's a difficult ask. There is no additional funding. We'd have to go deeper into deficit spending. However, the notion would be that we would, in all likelihood, be able to hire, the people who are leaving are more veteran, so you would hire less veteran staff. And we also have the opportunity, thank you, for some movement, some attrition, perhaps in the near future. So I think that there could be some cost savings there as well. So we do, and you do have some.
Okay, and we have a couple of people that want to speak. LSEA.
Good evening. So as you can imagine, when we saw the board packet on Friday, we were a little shell-shocked. And we worked together to write a letter. We sent a letter to the board members on Monday. You've read it, I hope, and we're going to just reread it and make sure you hear it again and make sure everyone else can hear it as well. Dear board members, we wanted to share some thoughts and concerns regarding an item in the board packet this week, specifically the item focusing on the restructure and addition of an administrative position in the district office. As you are well aware, we are in the middle of negotiations. What has been offered to all unit members is a 1% pay increase. As you also understand, we are a Me Too district. What you agreed to give LSEA in terms of raises go to all employees of the school district. We are concerned about how employees and the community will feel about an added administrator to the district office and current long-standing employees only getting a 1% raise. Our bargaining team was told countless times, we have no money. Miraculously, $165,000 has been found. This would be enough for an additional 1% for all employees in the district. We also know there are concerns about sustainability with a raise. With the implementation of this administrative position, it seems that those concerns were falsely communicated to our negotiating team. Pacifica School District already spends more on administration and less on teachers than comparable districts. This is noted on the last page of each school site's school accountability report card. PSD's administrators make substantially more than similar districts, while our teachers make significantly less. This administrative restructure makes the disparity even greater. It would seem to us this should be a process that the new superintendent should be a part of. With the timeline proposed by Leadership Associates, that new person is expected to be hired at the end of April. The new superintendent may have a better idea or vision for the district office. Our district office has maintained a working district as it currently operates. We think it would be wise to reconsider this agenda item as we face uncertain times. Thank you.
Darcy Fields for CSEA.
I'm Darcy Fields. I work at Cabrillo in food service. I've been with the district 28 years. I'm also on the negotiating team. And as she said, I'm new to the negotiating team this year. And all I've heard is there's no money, there's no money, there's no money. 3 years, food service has waited to be heard for a step increase. Like I said, this year is our year. No money, no money, no money. I guess what I want to say is I was shocked also to hear 165,000 just magically appeared. We have been at step 44 for 28 years. We are second to the lowest, crossing guard being under us. With all the duties that we have and the responsibility we have, it is laughable that we're at step 44. I guess my question to you, the board, is if it was a predominantly male job, would we be at 44? I would like to know why we aren't considered maintenance or why we aren't considered at least custodial. I also want to say that I have people come up to me, especially with the bond going on, asking if the school district is in such dire straits as it says. And what I've said to them is they always find money to do what they want to do. And this just proves it.
Sue Beckmeyer for CSEA.
Hello again. Dr. Tuckloff referred to bringing back positions that strengthen our district. I've been in this room many times when those board conversations have taken place. I've been at many work-study meetings where those conversations took place. I generally support that concept. However, I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of classified staff members who strengthen our district every day. And they too need consideration. They too need to be recognized for the work they do. We all have hard jobs. It's not about my job is hard. It's about the duties and responsibilities changing and the range not changing. We've made an agreement with the district to move the child nutrition, some of the functions out of our unit permanently, giving up work permanently to a management position, which was the child nutrition supervisor. That has had impact on the remaining classified staff. And I've spent many hours at the table trying to convey the nature and depth of those increases. They're doing inventory now. They never used to have to worry about inventory. It wasn't part of their job. Yet, now they do. If there's no hot dog buns, it's on them. They'll have to go to Costco and get them. Literally, that was stated to one of our child nutrition staff. What? When that was reported to me, I said, with what money? We have drivers in the, what? But yet, that's because that's the level of expectation on these people. You will, thou shalt. And they will, and they do every day, every single day. So, the district's proposing the addition of a new administrative position and restructuring the division of duties and responsibilities, again, between the top administrators in the district. They've somehow managed to find $165,000 to pay for these changes. Going into deficit spending. We asked to go into deficit spending for our proposal. Answer was no. Board says no. No new costs will be added. That was the response we got. We also asked for you to go into deficit spending to pay for these changes, but the district team was unwilling to agree to our proposal for a range increase that matches the increased duties of our kitchen staff. And they're unwilling to fund professional development days for kitchen staff, van drivers, tech aides, library media techs, to bring them into parity with paraprofessionals and behaviorists. We're told at the table that there is no funding due to declining enrollment. We were told it is necessary to not fill our vacant classified lead technology position and to cut the hours of our classified human resources assistant because the district will be in deficit spending. Yet management wants to move forward with a new admin position costing $165,000 in addition to just having raised the child nutrition supervisor to a director at the tune of $15,000. I ask you to rethink this item that is before you.
Okay, this is a discussion item, not an action item tonight. So any discussion?
I will discuss. I understand the value in this. I understand the need for human resources. I understand the need for supporting our special ed students. I feel like financially this is bad timing. I had notes about the fact that we are already deficit spending. A little bit later, we're considering adopting a TRAN, which I know is just for temporary. We don't know the impact yet of who we will have as a new superintendent for financial reasons. We don't know the impact, or it hasn't been presented to us, for the new principal. We don't know how the June vote will go. We have a long list of needed upgrades and repairs. Whether June goes yes or no, they're looming. We have down the road impact of stirs and PERS. We have insurance increases. And the possibility of hoping to offset is not enough for me. It just isn't. It's a great thing. I can see how this will benefit all of our employees having an actual human resources. I can see how it would benefit our special ed staff and our students, having somebody. We've been very lucky to have someone so knowledgeable being able to do all this. And but for me, it's too much unknown right now for me to be in favor of this. That's my feeling.
I can go next if you don't want to. Mine won't be as lengthy as Kathy's, but I feel a little like this is something that the new superintendent should oversee, and I felt like that from the beginning. I feel like it's not the time to spend more money on that position right now. I mean, there are a lot of unforeseen things coming up, and maybe somewhere down the line we'll have more funding. So just based on those things, I don't think I would be in favor of it either.
I can see the wanting things to be in place before we have a new superintendent, in order to feel like that superintendent doesn't have to do everything when they come in, when the new superintendent won't know very much about how this district runs and how we do things here. And if it was not a fiscal impact, then I would say, well, that might be, something to go ahead and have in place, making the transition an easy transition, making sure that our students are taken care of. But considering that there was a fiscal impact, it seems like bad timing. Would have been great if it would have been a no fiscal impact for us.
Okay. I mean, I definitely see the need. I mean, you can tell by all the boxes, and that Ray does everything, and it's going to be hard to find someone else that can do everything. But yeah, the timing with the finances.
So my wonder, of course, is as we have this opportunity, 50% of the cabinet, there's only 4 of us, so 50% will be going, and that's 50% of the knowledge of human resources right now. Because, again, Will is 2 years in, and Josie has worked this side of the house. So the wonder would be, is there still going to be some fiscal impact, possibly, which I could bring to a proposal. I'm going to bring some additional calendar information, is to maybe instead of look for, if we like the structure, to look for a executive director for human resources and pupil services, add some more boxes or lines to that particular role, and divide up the integrated services pieces. Maybe we, and I can bring another proposal forward, but I think that to have somebody who has that HR background is going to be pretty important. I just do. So that would be an ask, so that potentially when you are ready, because again, it indicates from the efficiency review that we are short-staffed. I know, it's hard to, we're all working extremely hard. But I think if you have a HR person, and then we look to divvy up the others until the superintendent can get a feel and a sense of how our district office and district runs, that might be the best alternative at this time. So may I bring forward to you on April 3rd, maybe a proposal with not an addition of a person, maybe, some stipends or something, looking at I'm trying to think about looking at the organization and see how that might work. Just like we have a VAPA coordinator, because maybe we need a wellness coordinator, for a period of time until we can kind of get a sense of where we are.
So, yeah, the boxes need to be moved around,
Yes.
Definitely, and if you could do that without, such
A huge cost, yeah, because I realize that. And again, over time, we will see maybe some changes in just the number of members that we have in our staff, and we'll be able to make some decisions at that time. Make sense?
Do you think an organization of this size just cannot function without good human resources? So.
Well, we were very fortunate because we have history. We know, and we could make it work. The next two people, and Ray was there, and I talked to him and say, now how did that work? And then it worked. And we won't have you won't have any of that history. And I really think that you need to have somebody who can start building or taking over what has been built to make sure that it continues forward. Because quite frankly, probably special ed, you have to have your processes and procedures in place, as you do in HR. And that's the part where we've been working on to try to get to that particular place. And, thank you all, because it's changed every year, and we've managed to move forward. But without someone kind of taking the helm and really being able to focus on it, I think it would be a real struggle for a new person, a new superintendent, because then it would be the superintendent who oversaw it.
So it seems very important now to make sure that we talked about this before, but to have a superintendent that is willing to do the work and not just oversee, because we're used to having a superintendent that has, what, 2/3 of the boxes under her name. So, and not everybody that is looking to be a superintendent is going to be willing to wear all the hats. But, it's important that we find one that will.
Okay, so I'll go over the calendar and then I'll bring forward a new. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, 11C, board calendar change.
Okay.
Boy, you know how to clear a room.
G isn't something I say.
We're all getting good at it. Glass of
Okay, with the search of the superintendent, we have needed to add some more dates. So, can you pull it up in a moment? So what I did was I put for regular meetings, April 3rd, which is a Tuesday, and we'll start at 5. We'll start, we could start in open session and then go to closed session, because at that time I will have the new suggested reorg that maybe you can assist us with. Then we're adding 2 special meetings on April 23rd, which is a Monday. You may not be part of, but I put it on there because I'm unclear.
He said we will not be part of the Monday meeting. The
Okay, so
board
we're not-
members will not.
None of you?
No.
Not
That's-
even at night?
No.
Okay.
That's what he told me.
Okay.
Last he told me.
Okay. So, and April 24th, it will be all day.
7:30 in the morning.
Okay.
7:30. I got it marked at 8.
We'll make sure to have coffee.
It's 7:30 in the morning.
April 24th?
Yeah, that's the Tuesday. 7:30 in the morning, we go through the day
Yeah, I
and
got that.
continue into the evening, most likely. There will be breaks, because there'll be people coming back.
So we're not stopping at
Yes.
5, we will have a.
If we stop at 5, we'll probably come back at 6 or 7.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
There may be a break, but he said it would probably go into the evening because it'd be calling back the finalists.
Okay.
Marathon day.
So if we can have action on these additional days, and maybe we could amend it to say just April 3rd and April 24th, and I'll remove April 23rd, or do you think I should have it there just in case?
We'll have it there just in case,
Okay,
so we didn't have to vote again.
Because I just remembered him saying something like maybe in the evening of April 23rd, he might pull you
that's
together.
But that would have given the option.
Yeah, that.
Oh, yeah, we had community panel reports out that we were supposed to do on April 23rd.
See, so I don't know. So can we just go ahead? We'll just leave those dates on there because I'm not sure.
Just in case.
Yeah.
So you need a motion?
Yes.
I mean, a motion to add these dates.
I'll motion to add those dates to the calendar.
And a second?
So can I just
Oh.
clarify? April 3rd is at 5 p.m.
Yes.
And then April 24th?
7:30 a.m.
All day long. April 23rd,
Probably not, but maybe in the evening.
if we could just get a for sure on that because I work. And I want to make sure.
The last he told me we were not needed on the 23rd, but if we were gonna, but if we did, it would be evening.
Okay.
If that, yeah. So, because you go till about 2:30?
Till like, I could be here at 2.
Okay, it would be after that.
Okay.
I would think. Okay, we have a second? Just a half a second, okay. All in favor?
Board passes 4-0, thank you.
And 11D, approval of contract with Enlight, Prop 39.
So yeah, this is for Prop 39 energy efficiency, and the state has allocated about $100,000 a year for Pacifica School District for energy efficiency. Back in August, the board did approve the first round of expenditures. And if you pull up the agenda item, There's 3 items that we have listed for our expenditure plan, and we do have ARC Alternatives is the consultant who's helping us with this. They've done a fabulous job in moving us along because it's not a huge amount of money for Pacifica School District, so we couldn't take on large projects, but we did try to pick things where we would gain the most energy efficiency and lighting. Those 3 items listed on the first page are the items in our expenditure plan. So we have completed number 1 and number 2, and now we're ready to move into the next phase, which is the interior T8 lamp replacements at 6 school sites. So I've also listed here the procurement guidelines because it is over, like normally you have a bid process when it's over 15,000, but because of the nature of this expenditure and after consulting with county council and our auditors, we were able to do this type of procurement process. And we did the same thing in August of 2016. So on the second page, you can see what the project scope is, which schools will be retrofitted with lighting. What's missing here is the district office in Lindemar, which we hope to include in the next phase of funding. And also the final, we're hearing will be more funding allocated in fall 2018, and then we would be able to include Ocean Shore and Cabrillo to finish off the project. So the total here is the $343,000, and ARC Alternatives helped us with reviewing the applications, making sure we're getting the scope and cost of the project, and checking references. And it is a recommendation tonight to pick Enlight to complete this project for us this coming summer.
Josie, can you just explain what are T8 lamps?
Those are, you're asking the wrong thing.
It's just those long
It is those in the classrooms, it's interior, the interior lighting.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's when you replace them, it does have a little bit of a different light, but it's supposed to increase the energy efficiency.
Okay.
Use less
Is it
energy.
similar to an LED, or
I'm sorry?
is it similar to an LED?
I think it's similar, yeah. We had all the experts. You're not talking, sorry.
She just says, okay.
They explained it all to me in very detail.
Okay. Are there any other questions or discussion? No? All right. Do we have a motion in favor of the contract with Enlight?
I'll move to get the lights.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Board passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay, 11E, educational support services update. Bill?
Yes. We have a update, an ESS update, and let me get going on here.
Oh, do you need that? Oh, no.
Indy has
Okay, I'm just making sure that it's not too zoomed. Okay, for the purpose of this ESS update, we're going to be going over an assessment update and some of the shifts that have occurred in the assessment update. We'll talk about the pilot report card, which we've been working on this year. We've been piloting a report card. And then we're also going to be looking at the surveys as connected to our local control accountability plan, our world language, some changes that have been done in our world language program. And then we'll also have a technology update. So as far as our assessments, our English language arts and English language development formative assessments, as you see on the chart here, there's a 2017-18, that's existing what we're doing, and then 2018-19, that's what we're planning to do. So in 2017-18, our FNP, or Fontes Pinnell, which gives us our independent instructional reading levels of our students, we've had 3 assessments, 3 times of the year that we assess the students in there. We're looking at reducing that to 2 assessments and really to focus on those students that are not making benchmark on that assessment and making sure that those are the ones that we are closely watching through that assessment. We also have a writing assessment through Teachers College Readers and Writers Project, and they're on-demand, they're based on on-demand writing prompts. And that particular program, the way we monitor their writing is going to continue as it was this year, with pre-on-demands and then post-on-demands to see how much progress they've made on specific writings in specific genres. And then with our ELD, we have the ADEPT that we've been using to assess progress of our students that are not performing or not progressing on their proficiency level in English language development. And we just had to make some timeline adjustments to that base because of the new LPAC, which is the English language, what does the PA stand for? English language proficiency assessment, what's the C stand for? But it's the new CELT, and it's the new version of the CELT, and what it is the timeline that the LPAC has is now the students that are English language learners take their annual assessments in the spring, where with the CELT they took it in the fall. So because of that change, we've had to adjust when the ADEPT assessments are given, so that it works in concert with the LPAC.
English language proficiency assessments for California.
For California.
Thank you. California.
That's the C.
Okay.
Within our math formative assessments, in our 17-18, we're using the number, corners, baseline, and checkups, which were part of the Bridges program. For the 18-19, we're going to be using the end of the unit assessments for a K-5, and just giving one number, corners checkup strategically, the third checkup, which happens around early spring. We're going to be giving that just to use that as an indicator of how they will do or they intend to do on the SBAC testing or the state testing. The Bridges unit assessments are assessments that the teachers give as they're running the program. That unit assessment is a thing that they're already doing in the classroom, so that now we're going to be utilizing it as kind of a gauge of measurement. For our 6-8, we have 3 benchmark assessments that are required this year. We're reducing that by 1. We'll have 2 for our 6-8 because we'll use the SBAC or the CAS scores in math as our final end of the year. And then we're piloting the PSAT for 8-9 for our 8th graders, which replaced our MARS assessment for 8th graders for various reasons, but one being that in math, we're using it as one of the indicators of their placement in their high school course. As far as 18-19, we're going to see how it goes this year and see if it's something that we want to continue. One of the schools actually has finished the assessment. I received their box back today. So Ocean Shore has completed their 50 or so students have completed the PSAT. So anyway, we'll see how that is and then decide if we want to continue.
And just for clarification, the PSAT 8, their score will only push them into course 2 because we are also using MARS 7th grade, MARS tests for 7th grade, which will need a new measurement, and then the CASP 7th grade score. Then it'll be the PSAT 8, and then we'll have another look when we get the SBAC scores for 8th grade math. So we have like different indicators along the way to push students forward.
And in our physical fitness test, wanted to give an update on that we have been, because of when we looked at the data from our physical fitness test, we noticed that there was a need to really dive deeper into those scores and to really work on, why were these scores so low, or why were these scores not where we would expect them to be. So our learning support team, which is made up of our VPs and APs, and Ray and I facilitate those meetings. We spent time reviewing the physical fitness test scores with our VPs and APs, and discussed how we can support not only in preparation for the 2018 physical fitness test, but also what we need to do to try to improve those scores. The VPs and APs then went back to their sites and they shared the results of the physical fitness test 2017, and they created their own action plans. And those action plans were actually turned in, they were written up and turned in to us. And the two things that kind of came out of that was to ensure that not only to work on the actual separate components of the physical fitness test with the students, but also looking at the fidelity of how it was administered, how the actual physical fitness test was administered, and making sure we were doing it consistently across the district with our 5th and 7th graders. With our pilot report card, we started out with 20 or so piloters from across the district and across the grade levels for a K5 report card. And the goal was that we wanted it to continue to be standard-based, but we also wanted to align more closely with the curriculums that we have adopted in our district, in both ELA and math in particular. And then the second big thing is we wanted to add this SEL piece and academic practice. We realized that not only is the state making us accountable for our social emotional learning, but also we're more aware now with our surveys and with our metrics that we have in our LCAP. We're more aware of where social emotionally, as far as student perception of themselves, staff perception, and parent perception, that we're able to kind of get a better idea of where we are in that point. So we wanted to connect that to report card also. So the report card process as it stands right now is we have 16 teachers across the Pacifica School District in K5, and after each trimester, so we've drafted a report card, and after each trimester that they've gone through, we've met with these 16, and we've gotten input, we made changes and adjustments, and then we've had a second trimester, and we put the new draft up, the new approved draft of the report card, and then we're gonna meet also again after the second trimester, between now, actually, probably pretty early in April, and then after that, we'll have a draft that will be for the third trimester, but we'll also at the same time send out the draft of the report card to all of our teachers, along with a survey, getting their input on what they feel about it. And then based off that data that we get from that survey, we'll decide if we want, what our next steps is. Are we going to fully implement it next year, K5, or do we need to do another year of piloting, maybe with a more of a robust group of teachers or different grade levels at different schools? So that'll be determined based off the survey results. But it's been a kind of a battle because there's been a lot of strong feelings one way or the other. I felt like we've made a great deal of progress in the content of a report card. The technical side has been really difficult. That's been something that's been a struggle, and that it continues to be a struggle. But I think within the content piece, we've come closer to where we want it to be. I'm very excited about it, especially with the addition of the SEL piece to the report card, which doesn't really exist right now on the existing report card. Surveys. So through our local control accountability plan, local indicators, which are our surveys, which are included in our goals 1 and 3. Goal 1 has the teacher survey, and goal 3 has the student and staff survey. Our targeted groups, which is when we gave out our surveys, was we gave the student survey out in September of this school year, and then the staff and teacher survey was just given out recently in January. And our parent survey is going to be given out on April 16th. The window is actually April 16th to April 27th. The impact of these surveys is that for the student, we were able to create a baseline for school safety and school connectedness. And that's the student's perception of their safety at school and the student's perception of their connectedness to the school. And that's important to note. And then for the staff and teachers, we actually had survey information from 2017, and we were able to give it in January of 2018, and we were able to compare the two, and on that metric, our perception of the teacher's perception of the implementation of the Common Core standards in the core base areas, we exceeded what our metric, what we wanted to get to on our metric, we exceeded that metric. And the bottom part's getting cut off here, but the parent and guardian survey, which we're going to give out April 16th, we're going to be establishing a baseline for that. And that survey will really look at participation, parents and guardians' perception of the participation, and parents and guardians' perception of their effect on decision-making at the school sites. So their feeling of how they feel like, as far as when decisions are made, are they their thoughts taken into account for those decisions? And in world language Spanish, did you want to talk to this?
Yes. So the goals for world languages are really is about appreciation and understanding of other cultures, and to increase, hopefully, the seal of biliteracy graduates from the high school. So by providing this jump start, we're hoping we'll be able to see a rise. Foreign language in the elementary schools have begun, as you know, in Sunset Ridge. The current model is 2 30-minute sessions and 1 30-minute online session. That allows us to do all K-5 with one teacher. Currently, what we need to do is to review to see if the online program was working and to evaluate the impact of additional classes, because we may be adding one more class to Sunset Ridge just to enrollment, which is a good thing. But how will we be able to handle it for the FLES program? We are moving Spanish to our middle school IBL. Of course, that creates a concern for our K-8s who have 6-8 classrooms on the other campuses. However, IBL is able to do it by embedding it within their master schedule, so it becomes an elective. We're working with one of our teachers who has one more class to take, and she may be able to teach that class. We're using and articulating our program with Jefferson Union High School District. They came over and spoke with us. And I do have an update on this. In order for us to teach Spanish for all 3 grade levels, the first grade 6 will be just Spanish language, more or less like the FLES program for conversation and culture. Grade 7, we would start course 1A, which is an all-year elective. So students will have to think and say, I want to spend my year doing Spanish. Then in grade 8, they will do Spanish course 1B all year. And then they will get credit for taking a Spanish course 1. And when they go to Jefferson Union High School District, if they should go, they could go into course 2. We will use their same texts, etc. Next year is going to be that jump year. So grade 8 will also take course 1A, and the Jefferson Union High School District has said that they will teach course 1B over the summer, so our students will get that credit and will be able to take course 2 when they start in the fall.
Then they'll get into the course, they won't have to be tested into the course.
Right. That's what they said. I asked that question. Yeah.
So is the grade 6 also included, that you have to take that to get in, or is it just the?
Right. Just the.
So if we have students that come in at 7th or 8th grade, they're just sort of out of luck?
No. Grade 7, they'll start their course 1A.
Right, but you say this included in that is the Spanish language culture appreciation grade 6.
Mm-hmm.
They also have to take that to get into the second year in Jefferson?
No.
It's just the A and B?
A and B.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So-
just an introduction.
Yeah. So, because we may have some students who have interest in language but haven't had the opportunity
Right.
to take a class. And I'm thinking, and Dan's in the audience, so thank you, Dan, that the grade 6 will be just one trimester. It's not gonna be, then they can get a flavor of different things too. And they might wanna take in grade 6 all band that year.
Right.
But then move over to Spanish, you know. So just giving them options.
Sure.
I have a question. Just having 4 teenagers and everybody taking Spanish, and not everybody gets in. So I'm just wondering how we're going to set up some of the 8th graders getting into Spanish too. Because the Jefferson Union in the past has had like these people are priority and these people are priority when they're placing students in the class. So I've had, out of 4 kids, 2 of them who didn't get Spanish classes when they signed up for them, and they were already in high school. So I'm just wondering how we're going to ensure that some of the 8th graders will get into Spanish too.
I'm thinking because Keith was here, the associate superintendent, so they're very excited for us to start this program because they too want to increase their rates for seal of biliteracy. So my assumption is going to be, and I will work with Keith, is to make sure that they have enough sections in order to accommodate this increase in the number of students. They usually come, in January, February to find out, what course, or now we've done doing it online, right? What courses they want to take. So they'll be able to see early on the students who want to take the course. And my hope would be that they would have space for all of our kids.
That's my hope too.
Yeah.
I think the lack of space is more likely in Spanish 1, because you have so many more students and they don't know if they like it yet or not. But there's a high drop rate, I think, by the time you get to Spanish 2 or 3. So there would probably be more openings in 2 than there would in Spanish 1, because Spanish 1 is
With this though.
they would go to Spanish 2, yeah.
Yeah.
But they
This
need
might shift
2
it.
years to get into a
So
four-year
what's
college.
they have a 1-year graduation requirement for world language? Does anybody know?
I don't know.
But then
Two
UC,
for the UC, 2 for most
for-
colleges.
yeah,
For
UC,
A to G.
yeah.
And so this would count as 1. Well, then, would this be
Yes.
all the language they would need for the high school, then, if they only need 1 year?
See, I don't think they're gonna get graduation credit. I mean, but they get credit that they've taken the first year. Now, when they get there, they start at the second year,
Right.
but they still will need 2 high school years for UCCSU. I mean,
That's not what he
That's not
said.
what they were talking about.
They'll actually put it on their
That
transcript?
That'll give them
10
A
credits
to
towards their transcript.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's good.
Nice to hit high school already having some
Right.
courses.
I used to do that in a unified district, so I was just very pleased that they would do that, because that was almost a no-brainer, but, I don't have, the,
Their Spanish 3 at Turner would often have maybe 2 or 4 students, so
Yeah.
there's plenty of room, so.
Did they do an AP Spanish at Turner? If they don't have anybody in Spanish 3, then I don't know. if
The
they do
department
AP.
was changing the years my son was there, so I think so the teachers were changing.
so I think it's kind of exciting. Thank you.
All right, then now we have our technology portion of our thing, and I'd like to introduce the fabulous Christy.
Should we go on to the next thing?
Who's getting very tired.
I'm very excited to present at this point in time. My name is Christy Novak. I'm the Access Equity and Innovation Specialist for the school district. And I'm here to introduce the first part of our technology presentation to give you a little update on what's going on as far as content, but also as far as equipment. So just to give a little understanding and background, this is just our overall goals, what we'll be talking about today, how we use technology, the technology committee, the district technology committee in our, that we use, our current devices and projections, and also to gain input. So some background information. In the past, the Library Media Technology Plan, which started in 2011, was crafted as a multi-year vision plan specifically for the area of library, media, and technology to help guide every year the thinking and the evolution of where the district wanted to go. Also, the strategic plan was involved in that creation of that document. And then it was reviewed on an annual basis and used to help make sure that we were not straying from our goals. The Pacifica District Technology Committee is comprised of a variety of people. Dan Little, as a principal, is the chairperson. As the specialist who works with technology, I'm also on it. And then we have a myriad of people. We have classified, Sue Beckmeyer, and we have a bunch of different teachers that are also innovation leads at each site that are involved in technology at their sites. We also have IT represented as well. So we have really a nice variety of stakeholders on this committee, which I think is valuable. And then we also get input from pretty much everybody else as well as we, as a committee, discuss and want to propose different things. Any questions on that? Okay. So innovative teaching and innovative learning, and how does technology fall into that? So when we have the ability to have technology within our classrooms and in our districts, we are automatically connected to a vast amount of more information and tools that can be utilized for different populations of people. We are able to then create greater innovative learning practices, which incorporate the 5 C's. You might have heard of the 4 C's: creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, communication. The 5 C's can rotate. It could be culture, it could be citizenship. It could also be connectivity or connection. And so in that globalization sense, as well as in a sense of, literally technology. But it can really help to enhance lessons in the classroom. And it also helps with personalized and differentiated learning to help students work at their own pace, and to help them if they need to refresh their understanding on something. It could be a valuable tool, and again, for multiple populations of students in our district. And lastly, a homeschool connection, because by utilizing technology programs that we have, parents have greater connection to what is going on in the classroom, also to connecting with the teacher, and also being able to have access or seeing on what kind of work might be done through, say, Google Classroom that could be posted online. So access 24 versus just the 6-hour school day. So Pacifica School District strongly believes in access, equity, and innovation, which ties in nicely with my title. But it is true that technology does help promote these areas. So in one way, it helps our goal to have equitable learning, which we are very strong about making sure that all of our students are getting equal, equitable learning experiences, first and foremost. It also allows our students to, again, engage in technology tools, understanding and thinking that is directly applicable to today's society. It also, again, in relation to today's society, our real world, what kinds of skills can we integrate and infuse within the school day that are practical and useful within the actual working real world? And again, it helps bring motivation, engagement, excitement, and different aspects of thinking to a student's learning and to the classroom environment, and can really bring things to the next level. So part of when we're talking about technology, there are different ways that you can consider how is it working? How might I evaluate the use of technology within the classroom? And so one model that I subscribe to and we educate our teachers on is the SAMR model, which is the substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition model. And I do have a delightful video that I would like to show. Bill's going to take his tab up. Remember the tab that you had up, open? Okay.
I'm all prepared.
There it is. Press play and then, yeah, we go.
Every day, teachers are designing activities to target higher order thinking skills in order to engage students in rich learning experiences. But integrating technology adds a whole new layer to teaching and learning. How can technology transform your learning design? Dr. Ruben Puentedura developed the SAMR model as a way for teachers to evaluate how they are incorporating technology into their instructional practice. You can use SAMR to reflect upon how you are integrating technology into your classroom. Is it an act of substitution, augmentation, modification, or redefinition? Dr. Puentedura likens his model to moving up a ladder. The model includes a dotted line that represents the threshold where you shift from using technology to enhance learning to using it to transform learning. Transforming learning builds higher order thinking skills, such as analyzing, evaluating, and creating, which are essential to Common Core state standards and 21st century learning. So, how can you teach above the line? Let's take a look at an example of a classroom task and how it evolves through the lens of SAMR. In substitution, technology acts as a direct tool substitute with no real functional change to the task. For example, take creative writing. What if you had students write a story using a word processing program? In this case, students are substituting a handwritten story for a typed story. The task is the same with no real change in student engagement. In augmentation, technology still substitutes, but with some functional improvement. What if you took the same creative writing assignment and had students use a word processing program? They could use features such as spell check and tools for formatting. Again, the story writing task is the same, but the technology augments it with enhanced productivity. In modification, technology should allow for significant task redesign. Take the same creative writing assignment and have students use Google Docs to write their stories. Students can then share these stories with peers and provide real-time feedback. Here, technology has significantly modified the original task by introducing the benefits of student collaboration. At the top stage, redefinition, technology allows for the creation of entirely new tasks that were previously inconceivable. What if students transform their written stories into multimedia productions? After creating storyboards, students film scenes, edit clips, and can publish the videos and receive feedback from voices across the globe. In this case, technology redefines the story writing task to include media creation, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. So, how can you use SAMR to reflect upon transforming your learning design? Puentedura offers reflection questions to help you move up the SAMR ladder and shift how you are designing learning experiences. For instance, ask yourself, what will I gain by replacing the older technology with the new technology? Have I added an improvement to the task process that could not be accomplished with the older technology at a fundamental level? Does this modification fundamentally depend upon the new technology? How is the new task uniquely made possible by the new technology? These are just a few of the questions you can ask yourself as you evaluate the design of a classroom task, and consider that not all technology integration is created equal. Ultimately, SAMR can help you evaluate your use of technology and design tasks that target higher order thinking skills, engage students in rich learning experiences, and impact student achievement.
Thank you. So this is, again, there are different models out there, but this is one that I feel is very, it's kind of straightforward compared to, say, TPAC, which is a different model, which is also great. But I really like the idea of the ladder, and no matter where you are, you're on the ladder if you're starting to engage with technology. So as a teacher, right, even though you might be starting with substitution, great, you're starting that journey. and then how you might be able to then craft that lesson to maybe become more augmented, or really get into that modification or redefinition stage. And this is how we can, as we move forward with using more technology and programs within the classroom, for teachers to reflect upon how they're using the technology and what impact that it is making on the students. And just as indicated earlier when we were talking about the 4 C's, when you're getting to that redefinition and that upper echelon, you really are starting to use those combination of those higher order thinking skills that we are looking for that will only help them in college and career. Any questions on SAMR? Or any
How is this, as an older person?
Sure.
I'm just wondering how this is, how do you feel it's being received overall? I mean, is there any reluctance on some of the staff to or not reluctance,
Sure.
but not being able to kind of use this on that ladder model?
As with any technology over time, you will tend to see the trend of like the initial like fear and intimidation. For example, even when computers were first introduced into the district, when Wendy was here earlier on, that, I'm not even touching that, right? I don't know what to do with that. And then over time, through education, understanding, and starting to see the power of it, I mean, today, they clamor for the devices, right? They are literally vying for those devices because they see the power and the impact. So I guess in answer to your question, over time you do see that comfortability, and it's just also the idea of modeling it, showing examples, and as they see their peers also starting to use that, their other coworkers, and they also see the excitement and motivation that the students can really receive from it, it really can spur that motivation for those teachers to climb that ladder. But with anything, it does take time. Yes. Any other questions or comments on SAMR? Okay. So just some examples of ways that technology is used within our school district. Obviously, we use it to help address our content standards. There's more and more content these days that is being delivered online, and just in general being able to do research, quality research, and being able to have a larger picture. Again, that individualized kind of practice and pacing, so whether you're using a program or you're doing a project, when you're using technology, it enables that student to have a little bit more self-efficacy about when they're able to get things done or according to their own skills or pace. Digital literacy is a huge topic, which I'm also very passionate about and engage in with the school district. The idea of how do we use technology in an appropriate way as citizens, and how do we interact online, how do we stay safe online, and those types of things, which are becoming more and more important in our society. And again, the idea of creating learning experiences or using things that are interactive. So instead of just passively reading something, how might a story become, or an explanation in science or math or what other subject, become more engaging or understanding to hit different ways that you might want to engage in learning. Again, we've talked about collaboration with applications. Google Suite is something that we use in this school district. Every student has a Google account within our portal, and many teachers are actively using it. I have many more teachers over the past 3 years that have started to use Google Classroom, which is a great, easy, effective tool to really help enhance and be effective with time. So that's also a great thing. And then again, of course, assessments, right? So it's all about data. And as we know, data zone, we have all sorts of different things. But how do we look at student data in an effective way by using the technology that we have? All right, I'm going to hand this over to Dan Little, who is going to talk about some of our technical aspects of our equipment.
Thank you. So what Christy talked about is extremely important in how we transform education for children, but how do we do it? What do we do it with? So my task coming on 4 years ago was to chair the technology committee to discuss with the teachers and the leads, the I-leads, about how to effectively implement technology in the classrooms. So in 2012, we came up with what's called the guiding document, and the purpose is to really implement the technology in the district right into the classrooms in the hands of the students and the teachers. It was created in 2012, and it serves as a template for what does a state-of-the-art classroom look like. And over time, that has changed because technology changes rapidly in our culture. The guiding document has actually helped to deploy a number of devices out into the classrooms for the children to use and to really enhance the teaching of the teachers with placing devices in their hands as well. And it's, like I said, it's served to put devices in the hands of everybody. What you have here is the updated technology guiding document based upon our most recent meeting with the tech committee and the I-leads. There has been some change. The most substantial change here is at grade 2. In the second grade and previous iterations of this document, they've wanted a kind of a 4-to-1 ratio of Chromebooks in the classroom along with iPads or tablet devices. What they're seeing now is that their children at grade 2 are actually ready to be using Chromebooks more so than the tablet option. What their intent is to prepare them and get them ready for the rigor of what is required of them for their SBAC testing in the 3rd grade. So what they're looking for, they've changed their alignment and their need in the grade level to go to a 2-to-1 environment in the classroom. So 16 devices or whatever, it's 12 devices per 24 kids in the room. We currently are still working towards the 6-8 or the 4-8 option of 1-to-1 in the classroom, and those devices, I can tell you, at IBS are in use every single day. The students are engaged. They're using the devices for language arts, for science with the new curriculum that we're piloting, any number of opportunities that the teachers can use the technology to engage the students. The children are really, really enjoying that. We're also seeing with this document that the TK and 1 grade levels, when we went back with the tech committee, we're seeing a change in what they're looking for too. They actually want to have Chromebooks in the classroom as well to better prepare the students with a 4-to-1 model while still using the tablets and stations to help engage the students with, because it's very simple for them. It's point and touch. So looking across the grade levels from 4 through 8, the initiative is to go 1-to-1. And we can see here in the blue that our target numbers are 14, 12, 13, 10, and 10 at the various grade levels. And the orange is what we're currently at. So looking at this, we are 7 carts away from actually being able to implement a 1-to-1 environment across grades 4 through 8. So what we have, almost 2,000 Chromebooks out in the wild working and looking for an additional 865, 175 iPads with another 210 in need. And those classroom projectors, it's very similar to the one that we're using right now, are in place in 73 classrooms across the district with another 51 to be installed. These projectors use a different type of technology than the older ones that we've had in the classrooms, where the bulb replacement on the older ones is a substantial cost. These ones here have a lifetime rate or a life cycle rating of up to 10 to 15 years. We also look at annual teacher laptop refresh. So we refresh about every 3 to 4 years. And it's about 23 to 33 annually, depending upon the site staff. We also still maintain classroom or school labs or media labs, and so we're looking at 34 computers per year on an annual, or not an annual refresh cycle, but we look at about 3 to 4 years for the refresh as well, just like the teacher laptops.
How do we keep this much technology without anybody to fix them?
Without.
No, but with one person to fix them.
We'll get there. Hold on. So the cost for the implementation, we're looking at, for those, all the Chromebook carts from, or the Chromebooks and the carts from TK to 8, at about $12,000 per cart. We're looking at a total of $310, and that's supposed to be another zero there, $1,000 for full implementation, TK through 8. The iPads at $450 per device, and I just heard this morning they've dropped it to $299 per device, so this number can be revised, along with the Apple Care, because they're going to break. We got little kids using them. At the old cost, it was $105,000. The projectors with installation, and that's the electrical work that needs to go into install these devices, plus the mounting and the hardware itself, we're looking at $275,000 for the remaining number that we have to install. The annual laptop replacement is anywhere between $23,000 to almost $29,000, depending upon the device the teachers select. We give them an opportunity to either select a MacBook or a PC device. It's whatever their comfort level is worth. And then $40,000 for site lab replacements. So there's your total cost, $760,000, and that's a ballpark number. I mean, now that we have a revised number for the iPads, we'd have to go back and take a look at that. We also have some infrastructure considerations that we need to take a look at and maintain. We have an extremely robust Wi-Fi backbone here, along with a number of other devices. So we're looking at about $100,000 allocated annually for maintenance, and this is the devices that I'm talking about, the ones that are out in the classrooms with the children and with the teachers. Ongoing maintenance is anywhere between $200,000 and $250,000, and that's for other devices such as projectors. We have a number of different devices here at the district office that we need to maintain. And here's some examples. We have a subscription service for our wireless infrastructure at almost $17,000 per year over 5 years. We have an appliance that we need to purchase one time for our Chromebook management through our Wi-Fi network. Our iPad management support, so every iPad that's out there in the field is monitored and maintained by the management device, mobile device management software, and that's an annual support subscription. And then we're obviously putting more demand on our internet. And so as we continue to add devices and as more and more things require more bandwidth, we will need to expand our bandwidth over time. And then, again, putting more devices out there into these rooms that currently may not have many. We'll have to install access points, and you see above Suzanne's head, that's an access point for our wireless network. Thank you, Suzanne. So, Andrew, you asked, how we have all these devices, and we have people need to fix them. Here we go. Our current tech staffing is at about $360,000, and that, Mr. Sandino, our network administrator, we have an SIS specialist who works to maintain our student information system, that's Synergy currently right now, along with a number of other different software appliances that work in conjunction with Synergy. We have one technician currently, and he is working very hard to meet the teachers' needs, be there for the students to help them, as well as to facilitate repair work for a number of our devices. We would really like to rehire 1.0 FTE lead technology technician, because we are looking to be adding over time a whole lot more devices, and it's becoming very difficult for our IT department to keep up with the rate of calls and tickets that are going in, because we are using technology for what it's for, but devices break, things go wrong, and they need to address it. The range for that rehire is anywhere between $68,400 and $92,400, depending. And then other considerations. We have all these devices that are out there right now. We have to really consider a refresh on some of the older devices that are out in the field currently. We have 427 Chromebooks that were purchased in 2014. So a replacement cost for those, once we cycle them out, would be around $123,000. Each Chromebook costs $288. That includes the device itself, plus the enrollment into the Google management for that Chromebook. And that enrollment is a one-time cost. Also, some professional development. We would like to continue to work towards upgrading our multi-purpose rooms, because those are larger presentation spaces. Many of them have aging equipment. We would like to be able to upgrade some of those. I know I'm not done. So the current status. Did you want to talk to this one, Christy? Somebody? Because
Will, would you like to talk to us?
Yeah, there's a general obligation bond, I don't know if you're aware of it.
you may have heard.
That includes technology, and that's on the June 5th, 2018 ballot.
So we'd really like to advocate for this bond, because we're seeing the definite need for our students in the classroom, as well as for the teachers who are working with our students every day.
If this bond does not go through, I don't know what we're going to do. That's kind of where we're at, really, when it comes to technology in our district with regards to the funding, as you can see. And so, we've gone through this over the years, but this bond is very important, not only for our facilities and infrastructure, but really for the evolution and ongoing, learning for our students, because we can't do that without the technology. So.
Any questions?
What was the total number, the grand total?
So it was, I believe it was $760,000 for devices alone. And then another anywhere between $70,000 to $93,000 for the additional technician. So that would put us at around, I'd say $850,000 at the number. But there's also ongoing costs that we have over time too. So I mean, we're looking at a big number here, and we can work to either with Will, myself, or with Christy. We can get that specific number to you.
Yeah, we can definitely get that specific number to you.
Do your numbers for devices, do those take into account declining enrollment?
So what we did is we took the numbers that we currently have today and just did our mathematical calculation for that to come up with these determinations here. If we're looking at declining enrollment, my understanding is anywhere between 35 to 50 is what I'm hearing. That would be 1 to 2 carts that we would have to take off the list for new purchase, because we already have some of those devices on hand right here. So it would be a potential cost savings of $24,000 to $25,000 just for the Chromebooks themselves. If we're looking at that.
Replace one when it breaks.
So that's, I mean.
But these were based on?
These are based on current numbers today, yes.
We did all the updates.
Questions? Getting out of here with only 2, I like that.
What was that?
Only 2 questions.
Good job. Jesse's not here.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nelson.
Oh, excuse me, so 11F.
Okay.
Declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
Excuse me. So this needs to be submitted annually in order to give us flexibility to hire a teacher should we need to, that is not fully credentialed. And so attached is what we project to be our number of
Trying to get it up, sorry.
so let me see if I can open mine. So for next year, we anticipate a potential of maybe 1 resource specialist not being fully credentialed, will be in the internship program. And then we may have some limited assignment permits. And what that means is that teacher, depending upon how many units they have in coursework, can teach within our district. An example may be, I may come to you with our Spanish teacher because that person has enough units but does not have supplemental authorization. So I would ask for a limited assignment permit for that teacher, and then potentially for special education. So again, by submitting this is anticipated, doesn't mean you have to use them, but if it so changes and maybe we need to hire more, then I would come back to you and update this and send it in.
I guess I'm not understanding why then on page 3 it says 4 total.
On page 3.
On the declaration, I thought you just said 1 resource specialist, so why?
Because that's a separate section. The emergency permit is under resource, and then there's limited assignment permits, which is 4. So that's a separate group.
So all we're looking at right now is just the resource specialist?
And and limited assignment permits. We could potentially have. It's just an anticipated. At this time, I'm thinking 1 in limited, and then 1 in maybe internship.
And is it that they have 6 months to go into a program? I was reading up on the fully qualified. What is the, isn't there a certain amount of time that they need to actually get into a program or finish?
It depends upon what type of certification you have. An internship, an example, but it's kind of interesting. An example is because I said I may potentially have 3 interns next year, so I take it back. Sorry.
Okay.
The emergency permit is 1, which means they don't have their teaching credentials, so we get them an emergency permit. At this particular time, I don't anticipate any, but we could, so that's why I put 1. Under limited teaching assignment, I anticipate 1, but last year we put 4, so I thought, well, I'm not sure, because this is the first time I've done it, so I went ahead and did it. But I don't anticipate having that many. Usually you would have in limited math and science, but we have our math and science filled this year. Then under internship program, I have 3, because I have 2 who are currently in and 1 hopefully to get in. And they won't finish, 1 will start and 2 will finish next year. So we are seeing our teachers go through the process, but I'm telling you, it's, like I said, it's, we really need to provide them the support. I'm constantly talking to the universities to say, are they in? When are you going to get them in? Who do I need to talk to? Those types of things we really need to work with them. Because these guys are teaching all day long and they just don't know how to navigate the university. And so that becomes kind of our job, become a mother to help them through. So I had 1 teacher get into the intern program in February. So I don't know what they mean by 6 months, but I will not offer a contract to this other teacher unless they are in a program by fall. So, I'm not sure what they mean by 6 months.
Okay.
I'd have to look at it, because they're so different.
Right. Okay.
So do we have a motion to approve the declaration of need for fully qualified educators?
A motion to approve.
Okay. Do you have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Board passes 4-0, thank you.
Okay, 11G, adoption of resolution number 2018-03-28-A, increased minimum borrowing tran. Josie?
This is a request for the board to approve a loan for next school year. It's a short-term loan from July 1st, 2018, and would be repaid by April 2019 to cover us for cash flow from month to month, because we do have negative cash flows during the months before we receive property taxes. So we have several months of negative cash flow, and it's a short-term borrowing for $5 million.
Do you have any questions? This is something we do annually.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the TRAN?
A motion to approve the TRAN.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Board passes 4-0, thank you.
Okay, 11H, resolution number 2018-03-28-B for Autism Awareness Month. Ray?
So almost 25 years ago, the Autism Society, which is a national organization, launched an effort to promote autism awareness. National Autism Awareness Month represents a great opportunity to promote this awareness. This resolution is now available for all Board of Trustees throughout San Mateo County to consider, and it is recommended our Board of Trustees adopt this resolution. And it reads, whereas April has been designated National Autism Awareness Month, and whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that 1 in 68 children live with autism spectrum disorder, and whereas the Pacifica School District, along with San Mateo County Board of Education and County Superintendent of Schools, recognize and celebrate the countless ways individuals who live on the autism spectrum contribute to and strengthen our communities. And whereas every year, people around the world join together to support Autism Awareness Month and light up their communities by wearing blue throughout the month of April. And whereas the United Nations has recognized April 2nd as World Autism Awareness Day to highlight the need to help those with autism lead full and meaningful lives. And whereas it is vital that students living with autism spectrum disorder feel included and accepted in our classrooms, businesses, and communities. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pacifica School District Board of Trustees hereby observe April as Autism Awareness Month, and be it further resolved that the Pacifica School District encourages the community to light it up blue on April 2nd and through the month of April to help shine a light on autism.
Okay. Any discussion? No? Do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
I motion to approve the resolution endorsing April as Autism Awareness Month.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Board passes 4-0, thank you.
Now the fun part. Board bylaws and board policies.
Okay, I have manual maintenance for the 000 series, 1000 series, and 4000 series. The first one is Board Policy 0420.4, Charter School Authorization. Questions? AR 0420.4, Charter School Authorization. Board Policy 1325, Advertising and Promotion. Board Policy 4119.21, 4219.21, and 4319.21, Professional Standards. And AR 4144, 4244, 4344, Complaints. Board Policy 4200, Classified Personnel, and AR 4200, Classified Personnel. Thank you.
Okay. 12B, December 2017 Manual Maintenance 3000 Series. Josie?
Do you want me to go through each one, or just? were there any
I think
questions?
like Wendy just did, the numbers, by number, just like.
This 2017, December 2017 manual maintenance 3000 series, BP 3100 budget. Recommended to use CSBA samples with revisions. BP 3515 firearms on school grounds. Use the CSBA sample as is. AR 3527 facilities inspection. Use CSBA sample. There was no current Pacifica School District policy.
12C, manual maintenance 5000 series, Ray?
All right, so for the 5000 series, BP 5144, discipline, use CSBA sample with revisions. And then BP 5144.1, suspension and expulsion due process. I'd like to point something out with that. In that BP, and you'll also notice when I bring up the AR, on page 5, item 3, we revised the language to say possession of and/or brandishing a knife at another person, okay? So then when we go to the AR, to make the language the same, to match, on page 2 of the AR 5144.1, item number 2, possessed, comma, brandished, sold or otherwise furnished any firearm, knife, explosive, etc. And thank you to our board for previewing that language and bringing it to my attention. And what that allows is flexibility for the administrator who is investigating the situation and then determining what the consequence will be as a result of possessing or brandishing. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And that's it for the 5000 series.
Okay, future agenda items?
Okay, on future agenda items, I'd like to include April 3rd, and I will bring forward one item just about reorganization, and then you'll be going into closed session. And then the rest, I think, is... Well, we might want to add, I guess, the April 23rd and 24th, but we need to clarify 23rd needs to be on. Okay.
Okay, the meeting's adjourned at 9:45. Now, right?